Hey guys, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. I just want to roll right into it just a little bit. What is it? I'm going to go into a little flow. Some of the words that were coming through were prosperity and austerity, and just playing with those words. What I wanted to just say in a nutshell, I was having a really difficult time communicating. I did a video and I just deleted it because it was so all over the place. Plus I have a lot of background noises. I feel like that's so symbolic of what's going on right now. It's like, okay, here it is. And then it's like, no, it's not. Delete. Okay, let's try that again. Here it is. It's not quite right. And I felt like this is exactly what's going on energetically from my perspective. And what I'm being shown is that, and I've been shown this for a while now, that anything that is out of alignment is going to come up. We've been having these cycles of beautiful bliss and incoming waves of beautiful energy, and we've had another one of those this week. We have them all the time. The question is, are we in that place, space, in order to feel what's being offered? And it's difficult to be in that space sometimes when we're processing so much or integrating so much. And that's also what was happening this week. And I'm just saying this week, I could say that's been what's happening for years. But I'm just going to say, just for this particular purpose of this video, let's just play with this week. So this week or 2 weeks, it's been anything. And this is going to continue. And I know I hear some people going, right? Or this sigh, like, went for how long? But essentially, we have these beautiful influxes of energy. We also have these massive purges, influx, purge, influx, purge. And from my perspective, that's also happening all at the same time. So that can be very challenging because we're feeling these beautiful feelings of bliss, which can bring emotions in a good way. Like, oh, it's just wonderful. I just want to cry because I love everybody so much. And then at the same time, I just want to cry because I feel so sad. I want to cry because I love everybody so much. Oh, I want to cry because I am feeling triggered by this emotion that I didn't realize was still embedded within my memory, or this trigger of this reflection of something that I see that I don't want to see. I mean, I could go on and on. Ultimately, it's here. It's all here now. So that's the challenge. And I realized that I was having difficulty describing it because it's so much. It's everything. There is no, from my perspective, just one thing that is showing up for us. It used to be that way. It used to be, okay, it's the divine feminine. Okay, it's the divine masculine. And that may be true for some people from their perspective as well. Okay, the earth is having this happening. Okay, it's this. I've been hearing a lot about the diamonds, which I've been hearing about for years, really. The thing that came up for me is patience, of course. That isn't just the only theme though, right? Resoluteness, resolution, resolve, dissolve, right? Migration, transmigration, right? Embodiment, clearing, purging, activations, downloads, upgrades, letting go, dream time, lucidity, 3D, 4D, 5D, other dimensions. I could go on just with those words for probably an hour and still not get through them all. Because from my perspective, it's all of that. So we've heard many people in this community, and if you haven't heard this before, then it'll be new information for you. But most of the time, if we're tuning into this type of video, we've probably heard it before. And we've heard that things are going to everything's going to have to come up to be shown so that it can be cleared and integrated. A year ago, I was saying it all has to come up to be composted. That to me means we utilize what we can use and we get rid of what we don't, which goes back to source or void space or whatever we want to label it as. I used to see a scuba diver, and I would see a scuba diver, I would be shown a scuba diver on the bottom of the ocean looking for treasure. So if you guys have been watching my videos for a while, thank you. That's awesome that I talked about this, where all of a sudden all the silt comes up and you can't see like 5 feet in front of you. That was a phase that we went through. And for some people, they're in that right now, right? Because there is no, time is different, right? So for them, they might not be able to see 2 feet in front of them, or put their hand out and they don't even know what's in front of them. But all of that stuff comes up from the bottom to be so that we can see it. But sometimes there's so much stuff that we have trouble even seeing because we're used to looking through a dirty lens. And that was another theme that I've kind of been shown in the past. So a lot of the things that many people in this community have spoken about, it's happening now. There are still some things that are being spoken about that are not, that haven't come to pass yet. And what I'm being shown is how what better time than now. Who sings that? Is that the name of the song? I love Morrissey. You guys all know. Love that song. Bottom line is we're seeing this bottom crap all coming up. And I think I talked about flinging poo in a previous video. I have a little poo emoji. That still is happening. That's going to probably happen even more. And so a lot of the stuff that we listen to in the Lightworker community sometimes are predictions about what we are seeing as intuitives in the future. But we're seeing it as having already happened. A lot of the things that I write about, it's like it is done. This has already happened. But some people are impatient right now because they're not seeing it show up for them. That's great. I'm not seeing it. Where is it? And again, this creates this feeling of I'm losing my patience. And I want to just address that briefly, because I guess that's kind of where I want to go with this. When we say the word losing our patience, it implies that there is something that we no longer have. But what we're recognizing is that patience is something that is timeless, hence the word patience. Therefore, we always have it and we never lose it. We just choose to distort it or not be in alignment with it from one perspective. We could go so many different angles with that. And to lose something means we no longer have it, but it's still there if we choose to see that it's still there and come back into a place of stability and coherence in order to recognize that there is nothing to really be patient for because it's already here. And I know that's like, okay, Carrie, what did you just say? Or, okay, that's great, but it's still not here. My dog is dreaming. From a human perspective, that can be challenging. We're human. Let me rephrase that. From a habitual perspective, based on us tuning into what we think or how we think things should look right now versus how they look, that would be this older, let's say, paradigm that we are basing our expectations on, which then makes us lose patience from that perspective. But from a higher perspective, the human is not this, oh, you simple human. I did a video called Simple Human. We are beyond this concept of losing our patience. That's just part of our ego or trauma or us. And that's okay. because we all go through that. And I'm not speaking for everyone, but from my perspective, most of us have felt that way at one time or another. So we're not always going to feel like, oh, just be patient. There's going to be those moments. But I'm just sharing with everyone that this is the message that's coming through. It's like, you just have to feel into that. And if you can feel into that, the more frequently, the more often that you can feel that something has shifted, the less you will feel a loss of something. And I talk about the loss of charge, right? I wrote a bunch of things recently and posted them. I posted a couple of really long blogs, but it's all play on words, all meant to activate and make us feel into the words. Anyways, loss of charge essentially means that we're giving our energy away. We're giving our power away. We're leaking energy because by us losing our patience, we feel as if we need to feed it in the first place, but it's naturally part of us. So it can be frustrating for some, and others, it's like, well, we've already won. So what's the point? Why are you so upset? And I want to bring that up as well, because we're being invited to take a step back and just not worry about what others' opinions are of our reality. Because we are losing our charge if we're not focusing on being in charge of our charge. So let's share. I wrote about this recently on that post. So I'll kind of explain that. When we're in coherence, we have this long wave frequency. And again, I always recommend Dan Winters and fractal fields. I haven't gone into all of that, but essentially what I've been shown, or heart math, right? It creates a spin, it creates a toroidal field, it creates a spin within the entire complex, inner to outer, outer to inner. What happens is when we lose a charge because we are giving it away or focusing on something that's dropping our frequency on a regular basis, by the way. So I want to kind of go into that. We all have those moments. Our frequency is going to drop because we're here on Earth. And we wouldn't be human if we didn't have emotions, if we didn't get triggered at certain times. We would already be ascended, right? Which we already are in other versions of us. Having said that, it's about the journey, not the destination, right? So we're on this journey and we're feeling this. And if we keep feeding that, oh, this is so frustrating, I'm losing my patience, when is this going to happen? That then keeps a consistent spin that then communicates with the field, and that includes our bodies, that then creates a pattern that becomes a habit. And this is one layer. There's so many different layers. I'm just sharing what I'm feeling in flow, what I'm seeing in flow. This habit then becomes sustained. That's what a habit is, a cycle, a pattern that repeats itself. And then we feel the other things that come with losing our patience, triggered more easily, depressed, anxious, fill in the blanks. And I'm using that as an example. So then we have lost our charge. So that then affects our ability to maintain some form of coherence. And I would like to use the word coherence and stability perhaps versus patience. Like, just feel into your heart as often as we can to help to restabilize what it is that we've lost our charge around, which might be our feeling of stability, our feeling of being able to be patient, our feeling of being able to trust, and all of that. And we could put any of those words or attachments with what is causing this leak in our energy field. Okay, and so on and so forth. So this is what I'm being shown constantly. And again, this is, for me, it requires maintenance. You know, I looked back at my week and went, where, and I had this conversation with a few of my friends and sisters. So thank you, lovely beings of light. Because many of us are going through this. And we all go through this from time to time, especially if we have a major event come up in our life, death of a family member or friend, loss of a job, change of a job. How many people are going through that? The need to move, migration, relationship problems, differences in relationships, stagnation in health, dis-ease, family issues, whatever it might be. All of those things could be something we're losing our patience with, or we don't trust anymore, or we don't feel stable in. So the only thing we can do in that moment is come back into what we have the power to do, which is breathe, stabilize. So it's maintenance. We have to maintain our field. We have to maintain how we feel. And that doesn't mean we feel the same way all the time. It just means that we recognize how we feel. And then instantly, just that can shift the frequency just enough for us to come back into, I'm feeling really impatient right now. I'm feeling triggered by this new rule that I have to follow temporarily. Temporarily. I'm feeling triggered by this new decision that I feel I only can choose. And I'm angry over this choice that I feel I have to make. So you see where I'm going with this. There are choices that many of us are choosing to make, but we can make them in the most graceful way possible in order to not continue to go down in our frequency. And that's, again, could be a whole separate video. I try to be really vaguely specific in these videos because my intention is to there's so many different, I think I said earlier, everything's showing up for us. Anything that isn't in alignment with who we really are, with our truth, with integrity, with love, with treating one another as a golden rule, with love, sorry, I had 5 different messages just pop into my head all at once. Do unto others. How would you like to be treated? Right. And we're seeing this showing up in so many different ways, not only in our personal lives, but out on the collective playing field, in that field as well. Also on the green screen. Okay. And the green screen is what's being projected from a false, unbalanced system. But that's giving us an opportunity to also see, wow, my friend Candace and I were talking about this, an echo. It's a lot of echoes. And it used to be you would have the echo kind of behind you. And I was sharing, I feel like the echo is all around us. We're in this echo chamber. And what is an echo? It's residual sound from the past or from another timeline. It isn't, right, what real in the essence of what's really now, even though everything is now. But you see where I'm going with this. So it's loud and it can be overwhelming at times because we're hearing all of this stuff that we're in the process of resolving, dissolving, facing, witnessing, integrating all at once. It's here. So again, we're going to have moments where we just, it's a lot. And not everyone handles it the same way. So however we need to process that emotion or realization or situation where we have to make a choice, we're being invited to make that choice from this new version of us that can see, wow, that's an echo. That's like the past. Why is that showing up for me now? Some of it's because we still need to look at it, or we still need to experience it so that we can experience it from a completely different perspective than we did when we first experience the origination of the echo. Does that make sense? So I'm using past lives as an example, and I'll be doing a video with Candace very soon. So we'll get to talk about that. Maybe I'll get to play with Jess very soon. I will be doing the double bubble videos very soon as well for everyone. I've met so many beautiful light workers in this community who've reached out, and we've done sessions together, and it's just like we need to play and work together, but I've been so busy that it's difficult to set that up right now, but that'll happen, all in due time. And that's another word that's coming up is due, right? Due time, D-U-E. It's all here. It's all coming up. What's been due, what's been owed, not necessarily from that perspective, is here now. So we were saying echoes, where was I going with that? Squirrel. Yeah, so it's almost like it's almost like we're being shown these experiences where we're processing them from a much different place than we processed it originally, past timelines. There's been this bleed through over the course, for me, it's been a while, but especially the last week, from what I perceived as other timelines, other versions, other realities that I essentially was feeling into. So something happened, let's say in Atlantis, where it triggered this feeling of lack of stability and fear. I processed it. How many lifetimes did I process it? Who knows? I mean, I know, but I'm just sharing. It's not relevant. But now, here I am now in this now moment, feeling this residual echo from that timeline, or Lemuria, or when you were an indigenous people, or when you were a witch, right? Or when you had a particular, you were part of a particular religious sector that was being, under scrutiny, or you were a shaman and you had to live by yourself because everybody, whatever it might be, it's coming through. And so you might have already processed that, but all of a sudden here it is showing up again, and it may not even be our stuff from one perspective, but we're seeing it because it's being processed on a collective scale. And sometimes it gives us the opportunity to process it now as who I am in this now moment, and feel into it from a completely different perspective. Because when I was a shaman, right, I had a different perspective than what I do now, although I carry that lineage with me. So I'm able to feel into both. Wow, here's how I saw it then. This is how I see it now. Isn't that interesting? Isn't this emotional? Doesn't this feel weird? Not judging how I feel over it. Wow, I feel, whatever. And I share this because in that, some of those moments, I was able to be very neutral, even though I felt weird about it. For example, I'd have this recognition that I was seeing something that happened, and I was seeing it as an observer in my intuitive third eye, but I was also feeling it in my body because I was still connected to that particular reality that I'm observing. Trilocation, all of that stuff. So this is like a lot. So I know I just kind of went into multi fields there, but for somebody who's just like, look, I got a family to take care of, we're going through work transitions, this and that. I don't have time to think about Atlantis. So let's talk about that for a moment. What's showing up for us is, okay, trust, fear, putting me and my inner growth on hold because I have to worry about my kids and my husband. And I'm using it as an example. Or you're a husband, a single dad raising your kids. I got kids to feed. I got a job to go to. All right, you're in the car for 40 minutes to drive to work. That's when you do your affirmations, you do your breath work, and focus on going into that heart, forgiving. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Ho'oponopono. Gotta ho'oponopono the shit out of some of the drivers on the road right now, right? Like, okay, wow. All right. That person's giving me some serious sign language, even though I didn't do anything wrong. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Because people are losing it. They are untethered. They are not able to sync up their left and right hemispheres of the brain. They're not able to connect into their heart. Guess what? We are. So if we maintain that and we master that self-mastery, doesn't mean it's going to happen all the time. So in that moment, if we react, we make a choice, and that ripples out and it affects the rest of our day. It affects their day, and it affects our field. But oftentimes what I'm feeling is almost immediately we're recognizing, oop, I was going to wave with my one finger. No, I'm not. Have a nice day. Hand on heart. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Or maybe you just clear it. Gone. Not mad anymore. Not going to hang on to that one. That guy must be having a really bad day. So on and so forth. So I'm just giving these opportunities because it is here now. We have all this crap that's being shown up. Some of it's ours, some of it isn't. But again, it can be showing up for us so we can actually experience it. So we came here to experience, and it can give us the opportunity to see what somebody else might be going through as a witness, as an observer, without getting completely entangled in their web of their creative reality, even though we're all entangled, right? So essentially, there's a lot, and this is continuing, you guys. There's been another, I'm hearing light workers across the community finally starting to bring up, we're here now. When is that going to show up in the mainstream? When it shows up in the mainstream, the more we can come into coherence and the more we can integrate this, the faster it'll show up. But the more we get pulled off track consistently, because what I've been shown is it takes a consistent patterning for it to then stick. If this is happening like a couple times throughout the day, but it doesn't stick, it's not the same thing. It doesn't ripple out as far, right? It's not as strong of a ripple. It's not as strong of a bandwidth or a chord. It's just more of a quark. It's more of a temporary poof. Whereas if it's happening over and over again, or we're allowing it to pull us off track continually for a few days or a few months, or we're continuing to react to the same thing over and over again, that's when it has a much bigger impact on everything around us and our bodies. So if that makes sense, that's why even doing this as often as possible is so important right now to help keep us on track, because that assists us in creating what we do want in our reality. And then when things show up for us to say, hey, I'm still here. Remember that jealousy that you were feeling when you were a kid? Here it is. How do you feel about that now? Still feeling that way? Okay, here's another opportunity for you to resolve that. Yeah, you might have a friend show up in your life that basically isn't necessarily not spiritual, totally involved in the mainstream, isn't actually that nice of a person from your perspective, yet they have everything they could possibly want because they're an amazing manifester. Are we going to feel jealous about that? I'm just using that as an example. Or are we going to go, well, and jealous doesn't mean we're jealous of the money that they have necessarily, or the car that they drive. It could be that there's a jealous aspect coming up of a relationship that they have. Maybe they have a really nice relationship with somebody and you're single, how come they, all of this, that's a little example in a major pool of many different examples. What is it? Start writing down some of those things maybe and going, ooh, wow, didn't even realize that was still there. Because again, the more we work on ourselves, right, the faster this becomes more of what we are now able to be, able to feel, able to expand out into. Because all that stuff is just debris hanging on to our field, coagulating. And when we get rid of it, helps that sparkle to come through, and all of a sudden the other stuff just falls away much easier, right? So, and again, other people's stuff is really showing up in our awareness too. Are we going to take that on as our own? It's up to us. It's our choice in that moment from one perspective. I guess that's where I'm going to end on that. That was just my little energy update. I think I had more, but I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter and just kind of share with everyone. It's, it can be really easy sometimes. It can be really easy most of the time. It doesn't mean it's always easy. I will share this. Oh, I don't know if I put it back. I hope I did. I had, oh, that's what happens when I take these out. I'll have to find it later. I had these little cards I showed my friend the other day. Okay, well, my mom's best friend was this sweet 80-year-old lady for years. I'll have to find where I put those. I could probably put them in a book. And she gave me some things before she passed away. And I'll just back up and talk a little bit about this intuition, following our intuition. And so I went to visit my family. This was years ago. I can't remember how long ago. And I went to visit my family, and she had been a family friend for a really long time. But it didn't mean that we would always hang out with my mom's best friend, of course. When I went to go visit my family, especially when I first moved out of California, I was going back and I was seeing all my friends and trying to squeeze in as much as I could in the time that I was there. So it wasn't that we would always go and see her every single time. So this particular trip, I knew I just was like, I have to see her. We have to go see her. So we kind of did a quick detour just to stop by her house and say hello and give her a hug. So we stopped by her house and said hello and gave her a hug. And she proceeded to, she looked great. You just intuitively know. I knew in my heart it was the last time I was going to see her. Just knew. And this was before I was doing, this is about 10 years ago, probably, maybe. Yeah. I wasn't necessarily as open to my intuition then as I am now. And she gave me 2 little cards, and she gave me like these little cards with like a dog on it and a little heart. And then she gave me this dish and a crystal, 2 crystal candle holders. So the dish was a crystal little candy dish, and it had a crystal rose, frosted rose on top of it. The candles looked like were also crystal candle holders. And then the 2 cards. I'm sharing this for a reason. At the time, I was like, okay, thanks. She's like, I'm just getting rid of some things. I knew that she was getting rid of things because she probably wasn't going to be with us much longer, even though she looked great. So the 2 crystals looked like the Merkaba. Didn't recognize this until later. The rose dish became huge for me because the rose is symbolic of the golden means and the toroidal spin within the heart. It creates this rose, right? I was always into Sleeping Beauty and the rose and all of that, because it's all symbols that are there that have to do with our DNA. Another video entirely. Then she gave me 2 cards, and I just pulled them out the other day, and one says, we're all in this together. I'm going to get emotional. And the other one says, God never said this would be an easy, I don't remember what I said exactly, but God, I never said this would be an easy ride. And I just thought we're all in this together. For me to find those right now, I just found it hilarious. And now I'm so grateful, because it was like she knew what those were symbolic of for me to have with me as these symbols and talismans, or whatever you want to call them. So our intuition sometimes gives us what we need. So when we look back at some of the things that have happened in our past, or conversations we've had, or relationships we've been in, it's important too, because we're tying that together right now and recognizing where these cords came from and what these little triggers really, where those began and where those attachments were, and how many angels and guides have been put in our lives. They're still giving us messages, even if they're no longer with us. They are still with us, right? And we can communicate with them. That's a whole other video, but I just wanted to kind of share that little story because it really helped me the other day. Just I was feeling a little like not being very graceful here. I feel like I'm doing some purging. And it just so happened as I was looking for something, I found those cards and went, oh, thank you. How did you know, right? All right, guys, in love and light, thank you so much for tuning in. Namaste.